Okay, Adam, the Buffs are back from a bye week and back to work. They didn't work today but we had a press conference. They had the day off of practice, but they got back a couple days ago after a 4-day rest and probably a much needed rest. I know Coach Prime mentioned that hey, we want to keep going, but he also gave them 4 days off and we got back and was like, hey, how'd you guys spend the time? And so he wanted to hear them what kind of things they did to kind of get away from football a little bit. Probably an important thing for this team. I don't care what happened in the Stanford game as far as a bye week, but I think the bye week is built in there obviously because teams need a little bit of a break at some point during the season.
Yeah, I think that's the competitor in Coach Prime that says we wanted to go right back out and play because you don't want to sit with that second half and overtime in your mouth for that long. It was an 11-day break from media availability. And so, but I was looking around even the press conferences before the bye week, and there were a lot of tired faces among the media members. So I can't imagine, and all we're doing is covering these guys. They're the ones that are grinding, and they're student athletes. They got the academic side of things as well, and this really goes back to the start of camp when you think about how hectic things have been for a stretch, and so I had to imagine on some level that it had to be really good for these guys to at least take a break. But maybe the one good thing about that bad taste being in your mouth is that you're going to come back fired up. I'm not saying if they go 5-2, they're going to come back from the bye week lackadaisical, but maybe you worry about that less as a result of what happened. But you'd certainly like to be 5-2 right now if you could pick.
Right, you would rather have that. I agree with you. I think that they come back fired up after that, and sometimes that rest is important. I mean, even Coach Prime said I got a little more sleep last week than I've been getting, and that's probably a good thing. Rest up a little bit for that stretch run because it's a huge 5 games coming up for this team, and whether they were 5-2 or 4-3 as they are now, it's a huge 5-game stretch because they've got to start winning some football games, not only bowl eligibility, but to get to a maybe even a better bowl than what 6-6 could get you. And so it starts this week with UCLA. Not an easy one. It's the number 23 team in the country, and you got to go to their place. The Buffs have never really done well out there. Their one win in Pasadena ever was back in 2002. They've never won there in the Pac-12. So it's a tough stretch. And so I think this is, in my opinion, this was a good time for a bye week because of this stretch coming up.
Yeah, with Arizona playing better football, there's not a game you're going to look to the rest of the way, and that's why they really wanted to get Stanford so badly. But, yeah you've got these 5 opponents coming up, and they should all be competitive football games. I'm anxious to see what the Rose Bowl looks like on Saturday because we've both covered games out at the Rose Bowl with Colorado traveling to play UCLA in the past, and it's a pretty awful college football game day environment. Now, there's some tailgating aspects that are kind of cool for the fans because they open up the golf courses around there. But I've been to a Rose Bowl, and that was electric. The regular season games at the Rose Bowl are pretty awful, among the worst in the Pac-12. And so now, with the buzz that Colorado has and having so many alumni that live in California, I'm anxious to see what the percentage looks like. Does it look like more than 40% CU fans? Do they get up to 50%? There's going to be a general curiosity, I'm sure, from just some UCLA fans that want to see Coach Prime as well. But I think Buff Nation should be well represented out in Los Angeles this weekend.
Yeah, it's a sold-out crowd, which we haven't seen at UCLA ever since Colorado's been there. Over 70,000 fans will be there. One interesting aspect is that the alumni will show up, but I'm looking at the roster, and I don't know the numbers in the past, but there's a lot less LA players on this team than there ever has been that I ever remember. I mean, it was always kind of a talking point whenever CU would go to LA, like, are your LA guys excited about going? And I'm looking through, I'm like, there's only a handful of guys that are from the Los Angeles area. And Ryan Staub is one of them, the backup quarterback. And so it's not like any, of their key players really, not a whole lot of their key players are from LA. So it's interesting in that regard, and that there's not a whole lot of that. You don't have a lot of these guys that grew up watching UCLA or rooting for UCLA.
Yeah. But it didn't help them in the past when they did, right? They've never beaten USC, and I remember last year they went out there and they tried to make Montana Lamonius Craig a captain for that week, and I don't even know if he caught a pass in that game. So it has not really worked out well with those SoCal natives going back home. So maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, maybe that is the best thing. Maybe it's just all these Florida guys that aren't fazed by going back to the Rose Bowl or back to Los Angeles, and so that can be a good thing. Linebacker was talked about today. We saw an interesting change at the Stanford game. Trevor Woods playing linebacker. Obviously he's been a safety here. He is a safety, but all of a sudden he's an inside linebacker. You're like, whoa, okay, that's their next solution there. Juwan Mitchell did not play, and obviously we talked about that a little bit, but Coach Prime had said, hey, it's up to him. Asked about him again today, and he said he's still got to take care of some things on and off the field. And he talked about Trevor Woods again at linebacker. It sounds like that's a spot he likes him to be at. He wants him on the field, and that's where they like him.
Yeah, there's three things that I think lead to that. First off is Juju Mitchell not being active in this program right now. We don't know what's going on there. The second thing is I think Roderick Ward has emerged as a guy that they really like on the back end of that secondary. He's a guy that he kind of makes up for his lack of size with just his aggressiveness, the way he flies around to the ball. And I feel like he's gotten better every week he's played at this level since transferring up from the FCS level. And then the other thing is Trevor Woods is one of your top 11 defensive players, so you got to find a way to keep him on the field. And as Coach Prime said, that he's so intelligent that he's been able to make that transition. So it's certainly a blemish on that linebackers group that we weren't quite sure what the ceiling was of that group. The fact that you have to move a safety to that group midseason, I think, says you're going to need to rebuild that group a little bit for the future. I think Vonta Bentley has had some good moments at times, and it looks like he's out there running with Trevor Woods with the first-team defense. So it's a serviceable group, especially when you know that Trevor Woods, even though he's undersized as a linebacker, is going to be scrappy and a smart player out there. You'd like to see Juju Mitchell back out there at some point, if as a Colorado fan, because I think he is their most talented guy at that position. And this is it for eligibility. So if we don't see him out there again, that's it for him with college football.
Yeah. And, safety is one of those groups that we talked about really from the beginning, that's one of the deepest spots. I mean, you look at the players there and even projecting the season was like, well, who starts there? Because you got Trevor Woods, you got Shiloh, you got Cameron Silman-Craig, Slusher, all these guys, and they've all started. Well, now their defense they basically got 4 safeties on the field, and that still doesn't include when you look at Ward, Cameron Silman-Craig, Shiloh Sanders, and Trevor Woods. That doesn't even include Miles Slusher, who was a game 1 starter. And so you still got some depth at safety, and so this is one of those. It's kind of a perfect storm in that regard to get Trevor in at linebacker, but it is an undersized defense, but you do have some of your best athletes out there.
Yeah, it is undersized when you put Trevor Woods at linebacker and mentioned Roderick Ward not being the biggest guy at that position. It does give you some overall team speed on defense, and that was clearly an issue when they were out at Oregon. It just looked like they were a step slow pretty much the whole game, and so maybe that is the right strategy. We'll see. Again, I would go back, though. I think if you could have Juju Mitchell out there, that would be the ideal scenario.
Yeah, we'll see what his status is going forward, but we have plenty more to talk about this week. Anything else you want to add today?
What'd you do during your bye week? You mentioned to Coach Prime that you did some fishing.
Yeah, I was able to go up fishing on Friday. Caught some rainbow trout up at Barker Reservoir in Netherland, and really just kind of spent more time with the kids. Got to actually see my son's football game on Saturday, which I've missed a lot of this year. And son's cross country meet. Daughter had her musical she was in last week, and it was perfect that it was on the weekend of the bye week that I wasn't traveling. I had to miss it. So basically, I just did the dad thing most of the week. How about you?
That's awesome. I ate a 24-ounce prime rib, and they told me I would get a T-shirt if I did that. But apparently, they want you to actually eat the fat that comes with it. Do you do that when you order prime rib? Do you actually eat the fat on that?
No, I would rather just have the meat.
That's what I went for, but no T-shirt for me. So I totally wrecked my digestive system, and I didn't get a T-shirt. So it was kind of a failed bye week, but I'm going to bounce back this week. Head out to Los Angeles. It's not usually my favorite trip, and I know it's not yours as well because of the traffic generally, but the fact that this is the last trip out there for the foreseeable future, I'm going to hit the beach and try to enjoy that a little bit and avoid the 24-ounce prime rib.
So I hope it's a better week for you, and we'll be back later on this week to talk more about the UCLA game.